Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I'm unboxing the OnePlus Nord CE4 Lite 5G. Let's get started. This is one of those devices with an exaggeratedly long name. We are talking specifically about the mid-range of OnePlus, which as you know is conformed under this sub-brand Nord. However, looking at the Lite name, we realize that it is still a slightly lower edition, so we could talk about a kind of low mid-range. Although the price honestly doesn't seem that low. In Mexico, it has been announced a price of 7,499 pesos. On the screen you see the reference price in other currencies just to give you an idea, but remember that the prices here are not the same as there. In fact, as a launch promotion, OnePlus has cut the price to 5,499 for a limited time. Again, you see the reference price in dollars on screen. I consider that to be a much more appropriate and more competitive price for the features of this device. So I'm going to give you a heads up that if you find it at the introductory price, I wouldn't highly recommend it. At the promotional price, yes. But let's take it out of the box to get to know it. And as you realize, in this case, we're not directly encountering the device, but this little box or envelope that has some contents in it. So let's first see what's in here. We're going to find, as you're looking at the USB cable, which comes from USB-A to USB-C with this traditional OnePlus design with a red finish with white tips. It's a very distinctive design for this brand and very nice. It's also a very thick cable as this device supports very powerful charging. But the detail here is that we are not included charger. And in such an inexpensive device, the truth is that this is quite annoying. It also results in expensive devices, but there we are a little more accustomed. In the mid-range, we are not so used to seeing this kind of trend, so the charger must be purchased separately. Well, let's see what else comes in the box. It comes with this little card from Nord, where they welcome us to this whole device, a quick guide, general paperwork. Finally, there's the tool to remove the SIM card tray. And that's all that comes in this box. As I keep telling you, there's no charger included, which is disappointing for a lot of people. But let's put this away and continue to look at the contents of the box. And now we are straight into the device, which oddly enough reminds me a lot of Sony designs, although it's been a long time since I've tried a Sony, but it looks very similar. In fact, something that I also find very curious is that this camera module gives the feeling of having some relief, but then when you realize it is actually completely smooth, only the two circles protrude, so it is an interesting design in that aspect, betting on a minimalist design, but with this little touch I think it gives it some originality. So that's all that's in the box, so let's focus squarely on the cell phone to tell you about the specifications that we'll find in this model. And I've already got the device set up, so let's take a tour of its specs so we can get to know it. It has a weight of 191 grams and a thickness of 8.1 millimeters. I think in that sense, it's what we would expect from a mid-range device. It's already uncommon to see devices that are very heavy or very thick, and this one is again, as I tell you, on the standard. In addition to this edition called Super Silver, it is available in Mega Blue. The screen offers us a diagonal of 6.67 inches with full HD plus resolution, and in this case it also offers us 120 Hz in its refresh rate, and we are in front of an AMOLED screen. Although curiously, by the mica that has factory glued, it gives me the feeling of being a screen with less contrast than I would like. I don't know why. Obviously, being an AMOLED screen, the contrast is actually very good, but I insist, it seems to me that because of the mica and reflections, the contrast does not convince me. So if you are one of the most demanding in terms of display, I would recommend removing the mica, although obviously that would make you a little more prone to some accident. Fortunately, it does have stereo sound with speaker down and speaker up, and it also has a headphone jack. I think it does deliver on those elements in line with what you'd expect from a mid-range device. The front camera is 16 megapixels with f2.4 aperture and fixed focus. Here's a preview of a picture I took just for testing, and so you can see how in the brighter areas there's a lot of overexposure. And here we are looking at the photograph already captured and processed. It improves in terms of light and shadow balance, although the color honestly does not convince me so much, but it's just a first look. And on the back we find the 50 megapixel main camera with the new Sony Lite 600 sensor. It has f1.8 aperture, optical stabilization, and is 25mm. Secondly, we have a very powerful depth camera. You do know I'm being ironic, right? 2 megapixels with f2.4 aperture. We'll test in a moment whether or not you're at least taking advantage of it. Here we're looking at photography with the main camera. It looks to me like it does give us good color, at least much better than what we were seeing on the front camera, which looked a little bit paler in hue. There's also a good level of detail. I think it's a camera that's going to deliver being a modern sensor. In fact, because it has this modern sensor, the Zoom 2X also retains very good quality. It does manage to look like it's optical quality. So that's something that's becoming more and more common in modern phones, and it's a nice thing. Because let's just say that in a way it would give us another telephoto camera, but with the same good lighting that the main camera gives us. So the main camera I do like, but let's now evaluate the next camera. Here you are looking at a portrait photograph, and personally I think it did give us an attractive result. Let's consider that several areas that are there that are difficult to detect, it has detected them with good accuracy. And again, since it has the Lite 600 sensor, it allows you to crop to get a telephoto perspective. Something that in portrait photography gives it a much more professional touch. And it still maintains good foreground and background detection. So at least it seems that it does seem to be making good use of this portrait camera that I find a bit annoying. So we found no ultra-wide camera, no telephoto camera either. It is up to you as a user whether you will accept this camera arrangement or not. In addition, the video recording only goes up to full HD. In fact, the front camera records in HD by default, although fortunately it does let us go up to full HD. As part of the software we find Oxygen OS 14, based on Android 14, and apparently it will have some updates. In this case, as you see, it is already receiving an update that improves the camera and some other things, so it looks like it's going to get a good enough treatment. We do not expect it to have many years of updates, but OnePlus is a manufacturer that generally does send updates. And keep an eye on the battery, which is 5,500 milliamp hours. In addition, it supports 80 watts charging, but the charger is not included in the box. So, on the one hand, they give us a very good news, with a battery that is above what on average is released in smartphones. But since you have to buy the charger separately, that definitely gets annoying. It offers us 8 GB of physical RAM, and also has the option of virtual RAM, which as always I recommend you actually disable it because it's not that useful, but with 8 GB of RAM, I think it can give you pretty smooth performance. That's a very good figure that, for example, Samsung uses at the high end, nothing else. Also, the storage is 256 GB, and just turned on it was showing me 22.5 GB used. So you have very good space for you to store your own files, apps, and more. And finally, the processor is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695, a processor that we have already seen in other devices, although at the launch price I think it starts to fall a little short, but at the promotional price it is a very good processor. If you are more interested in benchmarks, let me show you the results. In Geekbench it scored 899 points on a single core. It seems that it was very weak in this aspect. And in multi-core it reached 1,959 points. On the other hand, in Antutu it scored 468,694 points, confirming us that it is a mid-range processor. Although we have tested this processor in other devices, and honestly it has obtained slightly higher scores. So in this case the score we could equate it with MediaTek's Helio G99, just so you have a reference in case you're considering various options in the price range, which for most users is going to be a smooth enough performance, especially with 8 GB of RAM. You're not going to have too many problems when you're running your apps. But for those who want more power for gaming, it may come up a bit short. For now, it is a first initial look. I hope you liked this video. If so, you know you can let us know, and we'll see you next time.